Hi, I'm Brian. I am a photographer. I do business photography, headshots, interiors, events, anything you need for your business uses. Today I'm going to talk about something that's specific within those things, and that's political photography, candidates photography. And ideally, this will be something that a candidate can use for themselves. I'll give you some information on how to go about actually taking the photos yourself, aka without a professional, and also go through some of the basics for those people who are photographers who don't do business photography normally, who don't do political photography normally, and who just need a little either refresher or just a little more information on how to shoot this kind of photography. First thing first, you're gonna think, what kind of gear do I need? Oh my God, there's gotta be so much gear involved with this. In reality, if you wanna get something done that's decent and it's gonna be fine, get your phone, get your friend's phone, one of the phones that has a camera, preferably that has the second lens on it, so that it does a more telephoto lens. They're usually about a 56 millimeter equivalent, and that's kind of the low end of where you want to be for portrait photography. So if you're doing a political headshot, you can do it yourself. Kind of. These are the kind of things you want to get a professional to do, ideally. Obviously, if you can't afford it and you're on a shoestring budget as a candidate, I totally understand. I have been a candidate on a local level, and I've run 2 statewide campaigns as a campaign manager. So I get it. I totally get that sometimes you just can't afford $200 or $300. But I really recommend getting a professional if at all possible. It's an investment in you. In all honesty, your image is what you're selling when you're a political candidate. Yeah, it's your thoughts, but people look. You're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but people do. So the best possible outcome is going to be from a professional who does headshots, who does business headshots specifically. Depending on where you are, that can run $200, $300 for a good one. You don't need to spend more than that, in all honesty. You can if you want. You can go a little bit wild and crazy and just go out and get the craziest person, $1,400 just for the sitting fee. You haven't even gotten your images yet. You can do that if you want. I don't recommend it though. Get somebody in that $200, $300 range. Don't do a long session. Do a shortest session they have. Get in, get out, get it done. You want to have somebody who understands what you need as a business person and as a personality. So you want to get the best out of you, and the way to do that is to have a professional do it. Of course, that's kind of a plug for me, since it's what I do, but it's for all my friends all across the country who also do it. Okay, so what if you have no money to spend, you've got a friend though, and you or they have a camera on their phone, 56 millimeters. It's the 2x zoom on the iPhone 10, and numerous other phones now have that kind of camera on them. So you don't really have to worry about whether or not you can get your hands on it. You can get your hands on it. You just have to do it. So if you do decide to use a regular camera, make sure you've got a lens that's at least 50 millimeters equivalent field of view, so that you've got a little bit more space between the subject and the camera. That's really what you need for a good portrait to happen. If you're too close to the person, their face looks all distorted. So you don't want that wide angle lens on there, okay? So after that, the biggest thing is going to be lighting. Whether you've got a camera or you've got a camera phone, lighting is going to be your biggest thing next. In all honesty, a window works great. Be totally ideal to have your friend standing with their back to the window, you facing the window, they shoot you. Make sure it's enough light. Make sure it's not too harsh of light. You don't want crazy, crazy light coming through. But a nice cloudy day with the window would be great. You could even go outside on a cloudy day. But it's one of those things, you need light, especially if you're using a lower end camera. If you're using a phone camera, you need light. You need light for professional portraiture anyway. So if you're gonna do it right. If you don't have good windows, if you can't somehow get to windows, get outside on a cloudy day, anything like that, I have these. These are just cheap $20 work lights. And I actually have one on this side of me over here that's lighting some of the backdrop and some of me. And I've got some wax paper on the front of it to make it a little bit bigger light, a little softer light. And so you can get away with that. Preferably have two of them just to kind of, and put them at different distances away. I have a ring light over here. You can get one of those for fairly cheap. So, and these are all things that you can use for other purposes. You're not just going to use them once. This ring light here, you could put it on about 3/4 just off the side of the camera and get a pretty good result with that. But after that, you know, you don't have to go too crazy on lighting, but you need to have something. You need to have your face lit. You need to have it lit in a way that is appealing to the eye, not crazy dark on one side. You need to have a little bit even on the lighting, just because it's a professional photograph. You're not trying to be arty. You know, obviously my photography photos are different from my political ones. You know, so you can see the difference. There's a rhyme and reason here. The biggest thing with taking pictures of a candidate is making sure you're getting the right tone. If you're not getting the right tone, then there's no reason to even take the pictures. In all honesty, you use a logo of some other kind, and it would be at least as effective, if not more. Look, a face is what people want when they're talking about a politician. You are what you're selling. So it's best to have a really good photo, but I would rather you have no photo than a bad one, is reality. As bad as that may seem, get a good photo. So make sure, if you are doing the camera phone route, the do-it-yourself route, don't try to take it yourself. I'm a professional headshot photographer. I do business headshots. I've shot over 1,000 people's headshots. I can't take my own headshot. I just can't. It's too much to think about and do in order to get yourself into the correct position, to make sure that you're everywhere you want to be, your head's straight, everything else, you're putting into the camera what you want to be putting in, which could be a smile, your expression is right. It's too much. You cannot do it by yourself. You need somebody on the other end to check you out, make sure you're where you want to be. I'll give you more tips on posing later. Make sure you're where you want to be, and then push the button. You don't need a tripod. You don't need any of that kind of stuff. Backdrop, it depends again on the tone of your campaign. Let's just give a far out example. Let's say you're running for prime minister or president of a country, but you're a former comedian or a current comedian. Crazy example, I know. You might want to have a little bit more serious tone to your photo. That may mean a little more contrasty light, and it may mean a little darker on one side of the face, and it may mean a darker backdrop, a black backdrop or a dark gray or something like that. Whereas if you tend to be seen as very serious and you need something where you can relate to people a little bit more, you might want the white backdrop or lighter gray, that kind of thing. And definitely more even lighting on the face, really punch it up. But it's going to depend on what your campaign is as to what you're going to want to do. And another thing you really want to do is, if at all possible, just shoot on a pure white backdrop. That way it's much easier to switch in whatever kind of backdrop you want later. So if you want laser cats or anything else, you can switch those in later. I'm probably not going to recommend laser cats for political photography or business photography in general, but you can give it a shot. It just, I warned you. So posing is tough for a lot of people. If you don't understand how the body works and how the brain works when you're viewing a photograph, people don't get it quite right. The two main things you want to be when you are in a photograph as a candidate are confident and approachable. These are the things that you want. You want somebody who knows what they're talking about, but you want to have a beer with too. So confident and approachable. What does that mean as far as a pose goes? Okay? So if you're completely square, sometimes that can give off a little too much confidence, can be a little overbearing. So I'm exuding a lot of confidence, a lot of knowledge, a lot of energy by being square to you, but still having motion because it's video, okay? So if we go just a little bit off center with the shoulders, okay? Just a little bit, don't have to go crazy. And then make sure the chin's still straight into the camera. Straight into the camera, make sure your head's straight up and down. I'm terrible at that, I'm a real bad head tilter. I know this about me. Most people don't know that about themselves, but I'm a photographer, so this is something I know. Make sure your head is straight up and down. You're looking straight into the camera. Shoulders can be a little bit off. That's perfect. Chin should be out and down, all right? We want to tighten all this through here, all right? And then we want to get a great expression out of you. Whether that expression is a big smile, somewhere in between, or a little more serious, is going to depend on the tone of your campaign again. But that is why you need somebody else, and ideally a professional, to get that expression out of you rather than you trying to force it. I can't just smile into the camera right now. It just doesn't work, okay? So we've got our gear, our lighting, our posing. So now, one other thing that people could really go the wrong way with is definitely retouching. If you're not used to retouching or anything like that, it's very easy to go too far. Political candidates, make sure they don't have any pimples. Make sure they're not red too much on the face. Just kind of smooth any of that kind of stuff out. But otherwise, leave it how it is. They can have their warts. It's totally fine. If it's something that's always there, leave it. That's a general rule of thumb in business photography too. If it's not a pimple or just red blotchiness from being out in the heat or the cold, just leave it, all right? So don't overdo it. That's the main goal. I want to talk about your camera angle if you have a real camera, or even when you're using an iPhone or another phone. You want to make sure that your lens is essentially at eye level or a little above, because you don't want the lens looking upward at your subject. So you want it looking down a little bit, not crazy down, but just level to a little bit tilted down towards the subject. You don't want to be shooting up at their chin, up their nose, any of those kind of things. So if you're doing photography for a political candidate and you are a photographer or want to be a photographer and these kind of things, you should definitely have a good camera, because you're in a little bit, whatever that may be, whether it's a mirrorless, a DSLR, you're going to be in a little bit more difficult lighting situations. You're not going to be able to control the lighting. So you need something that can respond in those situations, better lenses, that kind of stuff. If you're doing events for political things, there's some things you want to hit, right? You want to make sure your camera angle is such that you're not getting the empty spots. So if you have a candidate that has a full room, great, fantastic, good for you. But if you have a candidate who has some empty seats, which is most candidates in most events have some empty seats, I strongly recommend that you go ahead and shoot from an angle that gets you the most people in the shot. Don't shoot empty space. It's going to make your candidate look bad. Make sure you get some wide shots with those people in them, but then also make sure you get some tight shots with a little bit of blurry background, blurry foreground, a little bit, just a little bit artistic, so they can use, so that the graphic people, if you're not the graphic person also, can use it to put their quotes on and do other things with it, put them in pamphlets, that kind of stuff. You want those action shots of them talking, their hands moving, a little bit of motion, them, just from the side, whatever it may be, so you can get those little action shots at the events. You don't have to set something up, but just do your best to make sure you get some tight shots, some wide shots, some full body shots without the crowd, all those kind of things, so you can really put together a story of who this candidate is. And I think that's the one thing that if you are a professional photographer watching this and you stayed through till this part, I hope you did, then you're going to get better results if you're telling a story by getting the wide shots, the tight shots, the mid shots, and making sure you're getting the candidate in action, and in action shaking hands and kissing babies and all the things that you want to get as somebody who's working on a political campaign. Look, this is something, like I said, you can DIY, you can use a phone and do all that kind of stuff. I don't recommend it, and the reason for that is you're always going to get a better result with somebody who does this professionally all the time, knows what they're doing, and can get you to be the best candidate, or get your candidate to be the best candidate. So that's basically it. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you like it and subscribe. That's about it. Talk to you next time. Bye.